he's already known for womanizing
That's a
to the
good
point,
point. That is a good
to
point.
the
We don't.
point where one of his colleagues, an esteemed attorney, writes a letter to another esteemed colleague and says, boy, it'd be great if that guy didn't have a dick at all with the kind of trouble he's causing us.
I almost tempted to wish he had lost something else.
Yeah, I think he called it a different appendage. I think I was like, eggplant emoji.
Oh.
The filthiest founding father.
Hello and welcome back to the Buck Starts Here, podcast that usually digs deep in the juicy stories, power plays, and wild twists that shape the presidencies of the United States. My name's Kyle, Czar Peter to Ray's Catherine, and today we're both extremely excited to be detouring into the absurd adventures of the founding philanderer, Gouverneur Morris. Now, I'm going to try to hit all the major points in his life, and I think, Ray, you're standing by to fill us in on his many celebratory liaisons as they come up.
Indeed. Very celebratory.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
One of his many entendre for doing the dirty.
Yeah, that one will come up in the Louvre at some point, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Quick note here on pronunciation. So I think the correct way to actually pronounce this is actually Gouverneur. And we both don't like that. We think Gouv is a much better nickname, so I think that's what we're going to end up sticking with. It's just calling him the Gouv. I think we can all agree that that's okay, right?
I'm big on the Gouv. Big on the Gouv. I like that. I did see three or four different pronunciations. Right? Yeah, Gov only because we use the word governor so much in our parlance. I saw a couple different pronunciations, and one indication that it was an odd pronunciation because of his mother's name. But then no information as to what, in fact, was the mother's name. So I never did get to the bottom of that.
I did get some information on the family. So he was born in the Bronx. We can start there, 1752. There should be no sexual escapades happening for at least the next 10 years, I think, right? Okay. So his mother was Sarah Gouverneur. It's actually her last name that he took as his first name. His dad was Louis Morris Jr. Now, Sarah was from, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's a Huguenot family that had first moved to Holland, then to New Amsterdam, and then that's probably where they got the Dutch version of the name, is because they're in New Amsterdam. Gouverneur is Dutch, French for governor.
Yes. Old New York, which was once New Amsterdam.
Yes.
Why'd they change it?
Yeah.
I can't say.
Nobody knows.
People just liked it better that way.
Sounds better that way, right? Yeah.
Someone will get that joke.
My wife will.
Good.
Well, a quick note about the father, Louis Morris Jr. He did die in 1762. So our trend of founding fathers, like being fatherless, is staying intact, unfortunately.
Okay, nice.
All right, so I think that kind of sets the stage for the birth there. The next major incident I have in his life is actually sometime in his youth, and we don't really know exactly when it was. I think this is probably around age 14 is what we're assuming. But he actually has an incident where he gets burned really badly. I think I've seen several different sources as to whether it's, I think the common thing or idea is that it was like a pot he knocked over, like a boiling pot. But apparently the burn was so bad that it took like most of the flesh off of his right arm. It was on his right side. Yeah. There's a couple mentions of this. William Pierce had a convention character sketch that showed Morris, I think, losing a leg and the arm. And then Penn Today had said that he was about 14 when a large pot of water. This is not primary verified. I think this is all just assumed, but I think that's like the assumed story of what actually happened.
But it's something people talk about throughout his life.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like we know this. Oh, that thing that happened to you when you were young.
Yeah, when you lost all the flesh on your arm.
Yeah, when everything the flesh got melted off by hot boiling soup, your soup arm.
God, that's fucked up. So his family is like all over the revolution too, which I found kind of fascinating. It wasn't just him, and his family is like really split when it came to the revolution too. Like even his mom was like on the other side. She like, from what I could see, it looked like she actively like harbored British soldiers or allowed them to quarter in their home.
Yeah, and he himself wasn't sure in the beginning. He was very much on his mom's side for a while.
Yeah.
And it's interesting considering how important he becomes that I guess we don't think about it like that, that there had to have been whole families that were just divided in half like this.
Right. I mean, you think of that in
And
the
his
Civil War
mother,
more.
yeah, we do think of it more of the Civil War, and his mother being one of these widowed women with power.
Right.
She's got an estate. She's got money. She's kind of in charge.
At least until
And
Mr.
he's,
Morris hits 18, or
yeah,
whoever
and
the
this until
oldest.
the oldest. It's well, and he has a half brother as well.
Yeah, yeah. Named Lewis
Um,
also, I think, right?
no, it's like Robert or something.
Oh,
Just a really
I think
normal
he had a
name.
couple of them then, because I think he had another half brother named Lewis. His
Okay,
dad
there was
had a
one.
second wife too. We should also note
Yes,
Sarah was the
so there were
second
some
wife. Yeah,
half
yeah.
brothers, and they had like normal names.
But there was a couple of them were actually like signers of the Declaration too. I think I saw.
Yes,
Yeah.
Morris family all over the place.
Right.
And what was their house called? I thought that was kind of fun, and I
Oh,
can't
I
remember
didn't
it
see
now.
that.
Their estate was called like Morrislandia or something. Like it
Oh
had a really
God.
funny
Morissania.
Morrisania, right? I
2,000
thought it was
acres on the north
Morrislandia.
side of Harlem, Westchester County.
It's like, what are we gonna where are we gonna name it? We're gonna name it Goof Town.
Right.
But it's cool. He's got his whole like it's like their little estate, but it's almost like it's their own
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
entering Morrisania, population 5.
I bet you that was one of his pickup lines. You want to come to Morissania?
I would love to know. Yeah. Have you ever been to Morrisania?
Right.
Do you want to go?
Population 2. Many.
It's so dirty. Oh my goodness.
All right. We're off to a great
Did
start.
we label this episode PG-13?
It will be.
Yeah.
So who had did Morris was because it said he didn't get to see his mom until after the war was over then, so I'm assuming he didn't go back home to the estate then until
No, I don't think so. I mean, would you?
yeah, especially if you're harboring British soldiers there
Harboring
too.
British
Yeah.
there.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was that big of an estate. I guess I'm so used to the
It
being
was like the entire Bronx.
right. It's the West Bronx basically, I think is the name of the neighborhood now. Jeez, 2,000 acres. All right. You have anything else that happens during this Revolutionary War period of note in your notes?
I don't have any like, and he doesn't seem to go fight. He seems to do the sort of wealthy landowner stuff that they all do. He goes to Philadelphia to participate in all of the conventions and the signings. So he's a member of the Continental Congress, and he's known as the penman of the Revolution. So he does a lot of writing. He writes the preamble to the Constitution.
Oh, we're not to the convention yet. That's 1787.
We're not to the convention yet. Okay, I was going to say, because he goes, so he doesn't really fight. He just goes and he just writes. And other guys edit for him. And there's not any real indication. I didn't see anything.
So does he not?
During Philadelphia really doesn't happen until the carriage accident.
Okay, I was going to ask, is it the carriage accident that leads to this? Because that it seems like that is the incident most people point to is where he didn't want to let the leg injury or losing the leg define him. So it's almost like his womanizing was a way to prove to himself that he was still more of a man than these other two-legged fools.
I think it's possible. I mean, he was obviously there to do revolutionary writing and to participate in some of these gubernatorial things, right?
Wait.
that we talk about. Or these guys, well, because a lot of these guys are like they're the official governors of their area,
right,
and are responsible to the crown. So he obviously goes and does that, and yeah, maybe it's possible that it's a huge episode of compensating.
Right. Or maybe women just like
I almost
the peg
feel
leg.
bad. Yeah, I almost feel bad, like accusing him of compensating, because I don't know the guy.
Right.
I'm sure he was an esteemed, and my opinion of him changed with my research, and I will talk about that later. So I don't want to be terribly insulting of him,
right?
Because I do have some sympathies, but
maybe
it was just like a hey, you want to know what I didn't lose in that carriage accident.
Right. Well, maybe we should talk about the actual incident itself then, because this is actually a really I think Eric had mentioned this as a story of him losing the
Yeah.
leg by jumping out of a window, and that appears to be a rumor that came about like much later. There's multiple.
I think John Jay starts that
Is John?
rumor.
Do you think it was? Oh.
I think I'm going to blame John Jay. He's the one who writes the really scandalous information. Like, he's the one who gossips about it.
He's the one who
And of course,
writes.
I never thought John Jay, founding father, and gossip.
I know,
Like,
right?
I didn't think of him as the town cackle, but maybe he was.
Um, maybe he was the comedian. He's just working on his material.
This is the fun stuff, kids, that you get to learn when you do research in original documents.
So let's back up then. The rumor was that he had jumped out of a carriage story or a 2-story window trying to escape from his mistress at the time's husband who came home early.
Yeah, and this is an unnamed woman. I'm not able to find.
I couldn't find any contemporary sources, nothing in any journals, nothing.
It's just referred to as he either jumps out and breaks his leg immediately running from a jealous husband, or he's involved in a carriage accident running away.
Right.
One assumes, like, carrying his clothing with him down a muddy street, being chased by an angry man.
Right.
Rightfully so. And neither of those things have any. There is a carriage accident that he is involved in which he is a pedestrian.
No, he's not a pedestrian.
Yeah, I think he's not a pedestrian. No. I thought he's a pedestrian.
Okay, so here, let me go through this because I got the notes on the accident here. So you know what a phaeton is? A phaeton? P-H-A-E-T?
Oh, yeah, I know what a phaeton is.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's like a sporty carriage, right?
Yes.
So that's what he was driving. He was driving this thing through town.
It.
And he got thrown from it because he lost control of the horses or something. So basically he was racing through town in a sports car and lost control, got thrown from it. And then I think he got run over by another carriage, and then that mangled his leg. Okay.
So I must have misunderstood.
Yeah.
My understanding was that he was outside of the carriage when it ran his leg over. I assumed that was a pedestrian accident, when in fact he'd already rolled his carriage.
Yes.
In a racing incident.
He ruined his carriage and then became a pedestrian himself.
Whose insurance covers this?
I don't think there was insurance at this point in time.
I'm joking.
Yeah. This is self-insured, I think.
So I'm self-insured. You take it up at the Bronx.
So, I mean, the whole accident itself is kind of wild if you think about it. Like, he's basically racing like the founding father equivalent of a vet through like the town square.
Yeah, he seems like he's kind of an irresponsible gentleman.
Right?
That he's kind of unconcerned with his own personal safety for whatever reason. Maybe I mean, he's fairly young as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a young thing to do, right? So there's multiple diary instances that I can reference here. There's Jacob Hiltzheimers, who said that Morris broke his leg jumping out of a phaeton as the horses ran away. William Churchill Houston, in May 15th, in a letter, said the phaeton hit a post and Morris's ankle was badly fractured. His leg had to be removed immediately. And then Samuel Holton on May 16th said the horses took fright and Morris shattered one leg while trying to get out. So it could have been his own carriage that hurt him. It could have been another carriage. It sounds like there's multiple reports. They don't really quite match up. The only thing we know is he was driving the carriage and he got hurt.
He's driving a carriage. He exits the carriage.
Yes.
And something happens.
So one more twist to this is that his regular doctor was not actually in town at the time of this accident. So the attending physician at the time, the stand-in, the bench guy, comes in and is like, "Oh, we have to take this leg off immediately." Morris is like, "All right, do what you got to do." And then his real doctor comes back like a week later and he's like, "You didn't have to cut that leg off. I would have saved it."
I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to Monday Night Quarterback a week later. Like,
you got to be really sure as a doctor before you make that kind of comment, or you got to really hate that bench warmer.
He hates the bench warmer. Maybe that's what it is. The other thing too, I seem to see a trend. I want to say among surgeons specifically in this era, where they're wanting to not do the things as traditionally. So, it used to be if you had a compound fracture, if your bone was outside of your body, they just hacked it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because the risk of infection was so high, and that was uncontrollable. You were better off managing a clean wound than you were something, random like that.
Yep.
Getting an infection into the bone, basically, which that's terrible. So you get into this era, this Enlightenment era, and especially like these European doctors, and that eventually become the doctors over here and train the doctors over here. They don't want to just do that. They've got these ideas about how they can.
Yeah, like you got too much black
They're going to do better.
We gotta.
Yeah, they're going to do better doctoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to set leeches to it, or we're going to do anyway. They had new things they wanted to do, and surgeons were kind of known for
contradicting,
dragging out these curative possibilities, and sometimes it cost people their lives. So I don't know.
So you think
I
that maybe it was better to just hack it off anyway?
I can't get behind the idea that given the circumstances of the time, if it was so badly mangled, I'm assuming it was compound. I'm assuming bones exited the body. Thinking about what the streets of New York or Philadelphia would have looked like at the time, the major city, these people and horses just pissing in everywhere, like sewage, mud. I have to wonder. I don't want to put too much. Like I don't want to dog on the surgeon that cut his leg off. The surgeon is like, listen, this is a wreck, and I'm not going to be responsible for a forthcoming infection. You had a really low chance of survival if your bones exited your body back then. It wasn't like it is now, where when I broke my arm and my bones were sticking out, we all laughed about it. And I just got a surgery, and that was the end of that.
So
we were like, wow, that's crazy.
Put a pin in that, because that is a bit of foreshadowing when we do get to the demise with the bones entering the body.
It is a bit of foreshadowing, isn't it?
Yes. All right. So tell me about John Jay's dark joke then. Okay,
so John Jay writes a letter, and this is where I started the carriage research. Because I was like, did the Gouv actually get hit by a carriage? Did he run out of a window? Was he being chased? And the very first thing I found referenced in every article I found about it was this letter that John Jay wrote. And he's like, well, Gouverneur Morris, this jackass. I wish he'd have lost a different appendage in that carriage accident. And it's like, so although we don't have any record up until 1780 carriage incident, he's already known for womanizing.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
To the point where one of his colleagues, an esteemed attorney, writes a letter to another esteemed colleague and says, boy, it'd be great if that guy didn't have a dick at all with the kind of trouble he's causing us.
This says, I'm almost tempted to wish he had lost something else.
Yeah, I think he called it a different appendage. I was like, eggplant emoji.
Oh. Oh, man.
The filthiest founding father. That's what this episode should be called.
More than Ben Franklin, do you think?
Oh, that is so... I think Ben Franklin was a bigger pervert.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Gouv was more prolific.
Gouv was like the Wilt Chamberlain.
Certainly as public. He was certainly as public.
Yes.
And more prolific. But I think Ben Franklin was actually like a pervert. And I think the Gouv was just libertine.
Yeah. Yeah.
He enjoyed his body and the body of others.
Yep.
That's all I can say.
All right. Well, the next bullet I have on my note is until the 1787 Constitution Convention, where we talk about the speeches.
Yeah, where we go to Philadelphia, and we meet the wife of the Maryland governor.
Oh. And
also the wife of Perez Morton.
At the same time.
At the same 1780 through 1788.
Oh, wow.
These are long-term affairs. Do you suppose they were a throuple?
Ooh. Founding father? They tended to be pretty elite, right? The elites get pretty weird, don't they, with their...
I saw Eyes Wide Shut.
Right?
Cringe.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, okay, so during the 1780s, 80 through 88 is what my notes have for these two women.
Did the husbands ever find out, or is there any notice on that?
There's no indication. Listen, I think everybody knew.
Yeah?
I think everybody knew about all of it.
Yeah. They just, he was just so nice to the wives, and they were so happy that nobody cared.
I wonder if it was that he was so politically well seated that no one felt they could say anything.
Oh, you think it was a power thing?
Yeah. Okay, so the governor of Maryland,
I'm the
his
governor now.
wife, Elizabeth Plater, yeah. So she has an affair with him for 8 years. And he's in his affairs, he's not quiet about it either. Like
Yeah.
he writes these women letters and like makes declarations to them in
Bails
public.
it to their
Like
house.
yeah, he doesn't seem to have any real shame about it. And he doesn't appear to be concerned about what others think about it. But he's like, I like this and she likes this, and to hell with the rest of you is basically his attitude. So I can only assume there's some kind of a power thing going on, or maybe he keeps it just quiet enough that it's not completely publicly embarrassing,
maybe
and that just nobody wants to deal with it.
Maybe a super flamboyant, like Liberace, like he just
maybe they were just like, this guy's so gay. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way he's sleeping with my wife.
Exactly.
I mean, but here's the problem: John Jay is talking about it behind the guy's back. He knows what's up. And also,
before.
where would this rumor? Yeah, where would this rumor come from about jumping out the window if people didn't know?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
The rank speculation here just is amazing. So he goes to Philadelphia. He's got two lady friends there while he's doing whatever it is your end of the research covered.
Does he ever have any children at these trysts? I assume if you find anything like that, you'll let us know.
No, I did not find anything.
How do you
about
control
children.
That? Never mind. We're getting. I don't
want to get into that's another women of the 18th century lecture right there.
Yeah.
All right, honestly, like people are hip. I'm assuming, women are.
Well, they had condoms back then. They're just not good.
Yeah, they're counting the days in between their cycles. They know when they're fertile and when they're not. Women are using the rhythm method. Women are largely responsible for that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Sounds
as usual.
Similar. Yeah.
Typical.
Okay, so what he was doing at the Constitutional Convention was apparently giving a whole crapload of speeches, because he gave more speeches than anybody else there. The counts from, I guess whoever kept count, was like 173 total that he gave. So I don't know what was going on there or why he was giving so many of these speeches, but man, he was all over the place. He
was severely impassioned about several topics.
Slavery was one of them, and this, I hope, is where like you first started to change your opinion of him, because I got to find the speech on this real quick, because I wanted to actually like read an excerpt of it. And
it's awesome. He's while you look for that, he's way ahead of his time on the slavery issue. Slavery is a debate that goes on, and almost what we would consider the most critical of the institution those guys are still saying, well, we can't upset the economy this badly. I know it's wrong. I know it's terrible, but we can't. At this time, morally, it's incorrect, but at this time, politically, we can't take this risk. And those are like the best of the group. And the worst of them are like, those aren't really people. They don't get rights. I mean, it's really, some of the debates are really ugly. And Gouv is like the only guy who's like, he really is impassioned.
We got to give John Adams
we'll give Adams We'll give Adams the credit too. But like Gouv gets up and he rants and raves about it and says, you're all wrong.
Yeah.
And any chance he gets to yell, he does. And I love that. I was like, okay, maybe I like this guy.
I'm gonna pick this up kind of in the middle of it, but this is my favorite little excerpt of this speech, and it says, upon what principles is it that slaves shall be computed in the representation? Are they men? Then make them citizens and let them vote. Are they property? Why then is no other property included? The houses in this city of Philadelphia are worth more than all the wretched slaves which cover the rice swamps of South Carolina. The admission of slaves into the representation, when fairly explained, comes to this, that the inhabitants of Georgia and South Carolina, who goes to the coast of Africa, and in defiance of the most sacred laws of humanity, tears away his fellow creatures from their dearest connections and damns them into the most cruel bondages, shall have more votes in a government instituted for the protection of the rights of mankind than the citizens of Pennsylvania or New Jersey, who views this with laudable horror, so nefarious a practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's really strong condemnation,
right?
And I love that he shames them by saying, how dare you count this in a government we are creating to be
how do you take
equal and representative and fair of everyone who lives here. And actually, if you go a little further down the line, he starts suggesting things like this about women too.
Yeah,
and
he does.
And then I thought, well, maybe that's why he got so many girlfriends.
See,
treat us nice.
This is what I've been thinking too. I bet you after what we just learned from the previous episode on the women, revolutionary women, all you had to do, I bet, to be a ladies' man is just listen and talk to them like they were actual people.
Well, Kyle, the more things change, the more they stay the same. What can I tell you? I mean, it's absolutely, and it's fascinating the way his sort of equitable libertine attitudes sort of play out in his life. Or maybe it doesn't. The more I looked at it, the more I started to think, like, this guy's just really, he really doesn't have any concern for, I mean, I'm assuming that the governor of Maryland would be angry. You're sleeping with my wife and like, she's my property, because that's how most guys thought. And here's Goob, and he's like, hey, she's a human being with free will.
Hey, she wanted it.
Got just as much of a mind as any man. And actually, he pursued women who were educated.
Yeah.
And women that he was involved with who were not educated, he went out of their way to get them educated. Like, he had
so he wanted to talk
to them.
He
really believed that women, he saw them as, so what's interesting about it is the philandering is a little bit gross. It upsets the social structure. I'm not a big fan of going around behind people's backs and whatnot.
Didn't sound like he did that, though.
It does sound like it doesn't sound like he did that. And honestly, what it sounds like to me more than anything is he really, I think, loved these women in his own way, that they were not, he wasn't just, I mean, I hate to yet again call into question Thomas Jefferson's affair with Sally Hemings, but one has to wonder what kind of a power dynamic is that?
Yeah.
You can say, he treated her well, he loved her. How is that even possible under those circumstances? But here's a guy who appears to respect, he at least commits himself verbally and publicly, which is a really big deal at the time, to the idea that women and men are equally intellectually suited.
Yep.
Yep. He, I don't know, this is the kind of like, well, when we talk about like not putting our modern sensibilities on these guys, this is the kind of guy where like,
you kind of can.
Women of my generation would be like, I like this guy.
Yeah. You throw a little Sean Connery accent on him.
Probably not going to get married to him or have children with him, but he's a pretty cool fella.
You get a good 8 years out of him.
A lot of these women got quite a bit of, they must have liked it because they stuck around with him for a long time. All of them.
That's awesome.
I don't know. It's very interesting.
Okay. I got one more thing and then we can move on.
One more thing from Philadelphia.
Yeah. This is some notes on the Constitution itself, some of his contributions that I don't think I ever heard about. Some of these I think were later reminiscences or put together by like Madison or maybe been through collections of letters that were sent. But like he had done things like the preamble to the Constitution was "We the People," and it used to be "We the People of the States of New York, of Pennsylvania," and like on down the list.
Very lengthy.
He was the one who's like, "No, it's we the people of the United States, and we'll just leave it at that. Like we're citizens of the states now." He's the one who championed that idea. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a really there's some really interesting. They argued intensely also about semantics at all of these meetings, like. What exactly do you mean by we?
Right.
Who is we? I mean, we would argue for a week about the word we. Like, what does that mean? How do you claim to speak for everyone who lives here? Just becoming, to the point, imagine like a room full of philosophers and how bloody insufferable that would be.
Oh
God. You or I would kick a table over and storm out of the room. Like,
Oh.
I have no patience for that kind of thing. But it was really important, and they really felt like this is a revolutionary document. We need to know exactly what we mean by each of these words. So, yeah, I love that, the idea of trimming it down.
I think
And
they called him
that's
the
a
penman of the
commitment.
Constitution. I think he was the one who actually
Yeah, they
like
call him
shortened all the verbiages of all these. Because
yep.
when Eric and I did our Bill of Rights, when we went through, like, it's really elegant and beautiful, like the way everything is shortened down to like one basically sentence.
It's really hard to make something as simple as it can be, but not simpler.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And Goof seems to have a knack for, if he has a complicated private life, he has a very pithy written life, yes. Which is really interesting.
Was his diary writings like that too? Are they?
He's very forthright.
Yeah.
I was the closest, like, I would say, like, from a literary that everybody would know. So he sort of writes like Hemingway.
Ugh.
His sentences are short and to the point.
Hemingway?
And Hemingway's sentences are quite short.
I thought Hemingway's sentences were run-on, comma-laden. Like I
don't find Hemingway overly wordy.
I cannot.
You should revisit that.
For Whom the Bell Tolls may have been the problem. That book was
okay.
Awful.
There are some lengthy descriptions really for him. Yeah, so Hemingway's kind of, I think a lot of people think of him as someone who just writes kind of to the point versus Kurt Vonnegut, for example, who's another great American writer, just on train of thought, right?
Did you ever read Galapagos? That was a weird book.
Yeah, I kind of love Galapagos. One of my favorites. Of course it is.
Yeah.
So, his diaries are really interesting. He's, it's almost as though he is writing. A lot of people, I think, they write journals, they're writing it for themselves to remember something later. He doesn't appear to have that problem. He writes as though he's expecting someone will be reading it later.
Yeah. You mean he probably knew at this point, by the point he started, because he wasn't...
I'm going to be in trouble one of these days, going to be read in court.
I don't know if it's necessarily that. I think maybe because he didn't start really writing until, like, later. He wasn't writing really... Was he writing prolifically during the Revolution? Because I think it was after.
I don't think prolifically during. It was mostly after. He would have been most of his time writing his actual work for during the time actual in, like, document writing.
Yeah.
So he goes to and it's a little different too. He goes to France and he starts to keep a diary or keep a journal.
I think that's when he
and
realized.
It's different than like Franklin's journal, where Franklin's like creating his own myth.
Right.
Like some weird raccoon hat wearing myth.
Can we take a quick detour real quick?
Yeah, we can.
Benjamin Franklin, I should mention this. Sure. I watched the Tasting History. Max, I think it's Max Miller does it.
Oh, I love him.
Did you see the one he did on Benjamin Franklin and the
I did not.
the Parmesan toast with anchovies?
Oh, that sounds awful.
Oh, it's so good. It's my new favorite meal.
Did you try it? Okay, all right.
If
you tried it, I'll give it a try. Okay.
My wife hates the smell of it.
So far, my favorite was the ginger cookies from the medieval
I don't
nunnery.
think I tried those ones. I don't think I saw that.
They're easy to make and really good.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
But I like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
So Franklin really is writing his own myth, and Gouv is writing like a deposition.
It seemed like because he was there during the French Revolution, and that's the period that we should be into next year. And it was almost like he was documenting the revolution in his diaries. So he's
So and it's like a newspaper man documenting. So let's talk about how he gets there. How does he get to?
How did he get there?
How does he get to Paris? It's just conflicting.
Oh,
I think you and I had conflicting ideas about how that happened.
Well, it seemed like there was. It seemed like he got a bunch of French and he got a bunch of letters written to him to help him introduce him to a bunch of people by George Washington to help introduce him to like the French royalty when he got there, or the courts, right? But that was done in exchange for him to go pick him up, George Washington, some sort of watch that he wanted while he was over there in France. So it was almost like they traded favors. You give me an intro to
so
this.
he goes to France, and it seems like in his writings and also sort of in his public dealings where he pops up. It almost seems like he's there as an official ambassador.
It seems like
the new United States.
Yes.
But he's not.
No.
He's not at all.
No, he's like there as a favor to Washington to buy a watch.
Washington is like, go buy this watch for me. Here's some letters of introduction. And like Gouv just stays.
Yeah. For like
decides
5 years.
Decides he likes it there. He's interested in, in his journals, he's interested in the revolution itself. He's interested in the motivations. He's interested in the court life. He likes the king and the queen an awful lot. He likes the arts. He likes the furniture.
Oh God, yes.
He's into all of that stuff. And so it's like he stays and he's almost like he's got these letters from Washington now. And it's almost like he's kind of wandering around like he's an official representative.
Yeah.
But not really?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the impression when I looked further into it. That was the impression I got. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the writings makes it sound like he's there officially, but I could not find any like official orders or anything like that.
He didn't appear. Okay, so Franklin's there as an ambassador.
Yes. Yeah.
Like so we know what that documentation looks like. Right. When there's a guy who's officially an ambassador from our new country. There's nothing like this for
They should be staying together or working together if they're there as ambassadors officially together.
Can you imagine?
Right? Oh my God, right.
Oh, the smell.
Put some clothes on, Ben.
Ben, please. More than just the hats.
All right, I've got a few stories that happened here, and besides the just documenting basically the French Revolution, there's a few other interesting things that happened while we're here in France.
And I think the fact that he is very much on the side of the establishment is an interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of. I mean, I think that was that more like the U.S.'s official position was to kind of like stay. But
he seems to be personally. So the official United States doesn't. We decide that we don't have the money,
right,
to help France. So we're just like, good luck with your revolution. Good luck overthrowing your king.
Well, they also say like, yeah, our deal was with, the King of France.
We were mad at England. We're not mad at the King of France. So that guy didn't do anything to us. Yeah. So we kind of dropped the ball on them. And whether or not that becomes a longstanding tradition is debatable. But
well, I mean, France is on
something
their,
to consider.
Fifth Republic now.
Yeah. I have a hard time with that. I mean, so maybe we were wise to stay out of that entanglement, but it's our official position. But it was our official position to be neutral.
Yes, yeah.
We're not going to support either side. He is over there, sort of intimating that he's kind of intimating that he's a representative of the United States, and he's trying to get the king and queen out of jail. Like he's trying to keep them from being executed. Yeah. Like they're his friends. He's actively
he crossed paths with Lafayette too, didn't he? Like try to like free them also.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
So
okay,
I don't know. That was interesting to me, and I didn't understand how that came to be. He did not save them.
P.S. says
he stole their furniture.
The American Philosophy Society, I think, is the one I found the notes on here. They found a statement from an account of Gouverneur Morris from September 1792, recording money Morris agreed to receive from Louis XVI to raise a counter-revolutionary force. APS says that Morris conspired with local councilors to try to save the monarchy and help the royal family escape, but the effort failed as the palace was
cash
stormed.
in a carriage. He manages to lie himself out of the situation. They confiscate the money, and he fails to rescue the king and queen.
So that's one. There's another instance. This time it's with the hostile crowd in the streets of Paris that threatened him during this. Must be like the storming of like Bastille's Day or something. Like he. According to reports, I couldn't find any first-hand accounts on this one, but according to reports, he took his peg leg off and like started brandishing it, claiming to the crowd that he lost it fighting for liberty. And then the crowd turns around and starts chanting his name, and like he becomes like a hero of the streets, like in this little incident. Like he turns the crowd from an angry mob into like a welcoming hero party for him.
You know,
this guy has charisma.
There's a saying about crowds too, though, and it's all of us are far dumber than one of us.
Oh God, yes, I agree 100% with that. Many people are dumb. A person is smart. Many people are dumb.
One person is smart, but a crowd is dumb. So that's interesting. So he's having affairs in Paris a lot.
Yeah.
During the time of the unrest. He's got his girlfriend at the Louvre, Adelaide, and then
that's where
during the height of the revolution, while he's waving his peg leg, he has a marquise d'Elita. I do not know of where her kingdom would be, and then he's got a third mistress that's in his diaries while he says he's serving as a United States minister in Paris in 1792, which I don't believe he ever actually is a minister. I think
Maybe
he's telling people that. I mean, did he write any letters to Washington? Well, we will never know because thanks, Martha.
Yeah.
So there's that. He could have been. I think that's reasonable. We certainly had a bit of that. But there seemed to be three women in specific, ranging from 1789 to 1794. Just one woman, Adelaide, at the Louvre, for 3 years, and it's just her. And he writes about her quite a bit. But she had another boyfriend, and he didn't seem to have a problem with that.
Oh.
She had another affair partner.
I mean, they're in France now at this point.
Well, yeah, named Talleyrand. I'm assuming this is a British chap based on the name. I don't know too much about him, but she seems to have managed to.
Huh. Good for her.
Good for her.
Right?
And yes, he speaks in his diary about sneaking off into the hallway while her husband is in the sitting room and someone is playing the piano.
The daughter is playing the harpsichord down below.
The harpsichord just down the hall. And we enjoyed ourselves a celebration.
Yes, they did.
Said. So he uses all of these euphemisms. He's the important business, or the needful urge, the celebration. There's a variety. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Just imagine a guy like this. He's like laughing while he's writing this.
Oh God,
like a Mr. Burns kind of laughing.
Yes.
Yeah, celebration.
All right. Before we can exit France, we got to talk about the furniture that you mentioned here.
Oh, the furniture.
So this was kind of a hard one to track down, but there was a bunch of furniture that was sent back to
his estate.
Morissania.
Yes.
Yeah. He bought a bunch of this stuff at a Versailles auction, and I don't know how you can say that he tried to save it when he took it home. Like, that sounds like pilfering. Although he did buy it. He did buy it.
I did not. I will believe you that he says he bought it.
I think there's actual records of the Versailles
is there
auction.
provenance for that?
I think
there
so,
are actual receipts. Okay, because
the New York Historical Society related account is where I got this information from.
Okay, I would need to see the provenance on that, because to me it sounded like what he described was it was nothing he could do to save the king and the queen. I'm going to ship this stuff back home right now.
Did he? I wonder if he used the money that was supposed to be used to hire the people.
I hope so. We're moving into the realm of slander here, although there's no one to sue us for it.
You can't slander a person who's dead. I've looked that up.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no one to sue us. He doesn't have like an immediate family to get us. It's been too many generations, but so remember Adelaide from the Louvre?
Yes.
She comes back in 1795 in Hamburg.
Oh,
yes.
In Hamburg.
He reunites with her. And
so he did more of a tour of Europe than after he left France. I thought he came back home right after that.
No, he goes on a European tour through Hamburg. He's in Prussia. He's in Denmark. So Germany, Prussia, Denmark. Gosh. He works his way north and then goes back across.
Did he get more letters from somebody to introduce him to court, or did he just figure that?
I don't think so. I think by now he's just known.
Known.
He's just known. He's the eggplant, the peg leg eggplant. Yeah. You know. I don't think they even had eggplant back then, but. So he sees Adelaide again in Hamburg, but he writes sadly in his journal, the spark had died.
Aw, that's the first time he got rejected.
So sad. It doesn't. You know what? I didn't get the impression he was rejected. I think they were probably excited to see each other and got back together, and it
was like,
Well, you have to think this is almost 10 years.
Yeah.
You know,
it's quite less exciting doing it at the
1789
Valley as opposed to
versus
the
1795. So it's the 6 years. A lot has changed. Maybe I don't know. People change, and they broke up for a reason. So maybe it just but he actually seems marginally regretful.
Yeah.
And then I have something listed here.
I think
he meets many aristocrats traveling through Prussia and Denmark. And so from 1796 through 1797 on his 3/4 year European tour, 1 year European tour, after Adelaide doesn't work out for the second time, I just have noted various noble women.
Noted.
my assumption here is that everywhere he goes, he sleeps with someone's wife and just kind of moves on. But
it's almost like he needs a place to stay, so he just goes and finds a couch he can shack up on.
I think he finds a couch, and to be completely reasonable, again, these are going to be educated, capable women, and he seems to. You remember when you were like 13 and like a girl let you hold her hand and you were like, I'm going to marry this girl and we're going to be like, there's no love like 13-year-old love, right? As I did my research, the more I started to feel like that's how this guy's like emotional compass is. Like he meets a lady and she's the most beautiful, the smartest, the sexiest, the coolest. Oh, she's her children are brilliant musicians, or her husband's a really nice guy. Like he just likes everything about these women, and like he just can't seem to hold it together. Maybe because his dating pool is the wives of his colleagues.
I know. Maybe try looking for a single educated.
Try woman. Looking for eventually.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
Maybe.
Are we at?
So that's what I had for European tour. So that's that.
All right. So the next thing I have then is when he gets back to the States. This is until 1804, but I don't know when he gets back to the States. But the next note I have is in 1804, and this is when Hamilton, after getting shot by Aaron Burr in that famous duel, Morris is the one who comforts him. He's the one who went to his deathbed.
So it's almost like for some of these things, he's the new Where's Waldo.
I think he's the Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah, maybe Forrest Gump is better for that. He does seem to have some Forrest Gump tenant. Like he didn't necessarily cause a lot of these things, but he's like right there.
Like there.
Except Forrest Gump wasn't stooping everyone else's wife.
He famously had trouble with Jenny.
Famously.
So I thought I had seen somewhere that Hamilton's wife was actually the one who went and fetched Morris, but I couldn't confirm that when I was looking through my notes again. If anybody's seen anything like that, let me know.
If somebody has that note, I'd be curious on that as well. Because then you know what my next question's going to be.
Well, yeah, right.
Was he stooping her too?
Yes. But let's see. I had something in here. Okay, so the other interesting point about this too is that Morris actually gave like the funeral oration for Hamilton and held back on his remarks from like fully attacking Burr because he did not want to cause. He recognized the role that Hamilton played in his own demise, like in instigating this duel, and he didn't think it would be fair to basically hang all of it on Burr and get him in trouble with the law if he wanted just to go at him, fully. Like he recognized the role that Hamilton played and dialed back his attacks on him.
Yeah, and this is, one wonders if a lifetime of sort of this, I don't want to say like conduit, but
probably lost a lot
sort
of
a communicator. Yeah, a communicator between like a British loyalist mother.
Don't forget a lot of his
revolutionary friends, and then
a lot of his friends in France are probably dead too because of
French friends who were supporting the revolution versus his friends who were in the nobility. I mean, one wonders if he had a perspective, and I would spend more time reading his journals.
Yeah.
Like if there was a volume, a collected volume, I would be interested. I'd be curious to know like how he was informed by some of these events. Like did that? I would imagine if I was someone who was kind of stuck between both of those worlds for all that time, that I would maybe see nuance in the Burr Hamilton situation where like other people didn't.
Yeah.
So see, I'm defending this guy now. Listen to me.
Defending Burr, or defending Gouverneur.
No, I'm defending the Goove.
The Goove
is
awesome. How do you not come away loving this dude? This dude is amazing. Why is he not like the founding father we all learn about?
Well, because he was.
Well, he's like women because he was nice to women.
Because he was nice to women. There you go.
That's what it was. Yeah, he's nice to women.
Extra nice.
Yes. You know what else he did? This isn't. We're jumping ahead to 1807 now, but he got put on the planning committee of New York to help plan for the growth, and was one of the 3 people who came up with the freaking grid system. So if you enjoy getting around in that city, or a city
if you
like
enjoy
Phoenix,
being able to do any kind of transportation in New York,
you can thank Gouverneur Morris for that one. The Goove.
Count the avenues and roads and know where you're going. Yeah.
He was part of a 3-man commissioner group that, let's see, it was Gouverneur Morris, Simone DeWitt, and John Rutherford. Yeah.
Interesting.
They were given 1807 Act appointed them, and they gave them until 1811 to complete the plan, which looks like they did a pretty damn good job doing.
They missed the Lower East Side, but that's okay.
1812 gets a little weird for him. This point, the War of 1812, he was not a huge fan of. To the point where he actually advocated for succession. Like, it's like, hey, we should leave the Union. We didn't agree to this. This war is going to be bad for us.
So again, it's another unique perspective. Like advocating for secession, to be fair, it wasn't anti-constitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that question never really was resolved, right?
We're a negative rights society. So if it doesn't explicitly say you can't do this, then well, maybe you can.
Yeah.
It's kind of an idea ahead of its time, for better or for worse. Like I said, when I said that, I didn't say it was a good idea. I just said it came early.
Yeah, fair enough.
But again, I wonder how many people also were not into the whole War of 1812 thing.
I mean, we just fought
I know
the British.
I'm not into a lot of the wars we're involved in right now for the same reason.
Right.
So, I mean, it's, I don't know. For me, that's another reason to like him. But it was, I think, difficult for him to express that. Of course, publicly, like he did with everything else.
I think that's what I liked about him, is he wasn't afraid to express his opinion, even if it wasn't popular.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, some of his statements indicate that he almost enjoys them, that they're not popular.
Oh, okay. So maybe just.
Do you find any an instigating tone in some of his writing?
I suppose you look at some of his speeches; they're a bit antagonistic.
Cheeky. He's a bit cheeky.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some sass. He put some sass on it. How's that?
When does he meet the other lady who had the real scandal?
Nancy, his housekeeper.
Yes.
So 1809, he's got a housekeeper.
Okay.
And she's involved in a scandal, but I couldn't find any evidence that it actually.
I don't think it ever happened. I think it was just rumor.
It was the weirdest rumor.
But there was some weird stuff with the husband itself, though, wasn't there?
She slept with her brother or her stepbrother or something and became pregnant, and then that she had killed the baby.
Yeah, and some other guy. Right?
But there was no evidence that there was ever a baby.
This sounds like the kind of rumor that some dumbass makes.
But somebody drags you to court.
Yeah.
Someone drags you to court. And there's it's a very public, and it's referred to as a bizarre scandal, in the headlines.
Yeah.
It's a newspaper scandal, like a Weekly World News Inquirer situation. And it doesn't appear that she
did anything.
Now she's definitely, and I don't know exactly what year. You'd have to double check me on this because I didn't write it down. What year the scandal happens? But I think she's already his housekeeper. She's probably already sleeping with him.
Let me see
by this time.
Find it real quick.
And he does make he makes an appearance as well, I think, in the court. I think I recall reading that there's.
So he married in 1809. I don't see when the scandal. 1793 is when the scandal happened. Richard Rudolph and Nancy were accused of murdering a newborn baby who's said to be Nancy's. Presumably, she'd been having an affair with Richard. So Richard Randolph was the one who was accused of.
That was her.
He stood
husband.
trial. Oh, and get this. Guess who defended Richard in this trial? Freaking Patrick Henry and John Marshall.
I love it. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
They got an acquittal.
Amazing.
But then
they did get an acquittal.
The really weird part.
I don't think there was ever a baby, though. That was the problem.
No,
I think they couldn't prove that there had actually been a person.
But there was.
How can you murder something that wasn't a person?
But Richard Rudolph did die suddenly in 1796. And there was nothing was proven. Both sisters were suspected.
Every time a man dies, they try to blame a woman. But who does the most killing of men? It's other men.
So it says that she knew him previously, but I don't know how well.
Yeah, so she becomes his housekeeper post-scandal.
Yeah, has to be. Yeah.
I feel like he had written a letter or he appears in the court records somehow. I think he's connected to it. It's the weirdest thing. Bizarre scandal.
Yeah.
So they get married. She's his housekeeper. And I don't know, what does that even mean by housekeeper? At this point, how are you the housekeeper of
That's a big estate too.
The 200-acre.
2,000
How are you the
acre
housekeeper of the? Excuse me, 2,000 acre. How are you the housekeeper of the Bronx?
of
I think
Morissania.
I hate to tell you this, but I think housekeeper means live-in girlfriend.
Probably. That
Um,
sounds about right. This is like a pulled up
yeah, like
situation.
she's doing the household tasks.
Yeah.
And maybe after a while she was like, listen, you're getting wife work without the wife title,
Yeah.
and I'm not having it any longer.
I'd like to be taken care of here in case something happens to you.
Yeah, I'd like to also be taken care. I'm
Yeah.
taking care of you. You take care of me. There's a nice economic exchange here. He's 54.
Yeah.
Just fairly old.
Right.
By this, and considering his injuries over the years, I mean, this guy didn't have an easy life.
No.
He's got his screwed up arm. He's got his peg leg. He's been who knows how many banged around how many times in the riots in France and
right.
I mean, wouldn't imagine it was pretty these guys didn't live. They kind of lived rough, is what I'm saying. All of them. So I thought that was interesting that finally at 54 he settles down with a lady who's managing his estate.
I saw he had a kid too, Morris Jr.
Morris Jr. Whose child is that?
I thought it was hers.
Was it Nancy's?
Yeah, they had a Gouverneur Morris Jr. By all accounts, marriage
Nancy
is a happy one.
Randolph's.
Nancy, yeah.
Really? How old was she?
She was pretty young, I thought.
I thought she must have been in her 40s. I imagined that she must have been in her 40s.
I just saw
and
that.
And somehow I missed that she had a child with him.
I missed
Incredible.
It too. Gouverneur Morris Jr. went on to have a long career as a railroad executive, apparently. Okay, we'll have to do a little bit more research on the son.
No accounting on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure not nearly as exciting as his father's life.
I know, right? Which unfortunately is coming to an end.
Comes to a close
in 1816. Unusual way of dying. This is the first time I've seen this, but he had an obstruction in his urethra, and then he tried to self-medicate with a whalebone and clear the obstruction, which then caused an infection, and that's why he died.
Yeah, and I think contemporaries look back at that and say that he must have thought that he had a kidney stone lodged in there.
Maybe, okay. Or
something like that. But really what they suspect was that it was prostate cancer and that there was not an obstruction at all.
Oh.
And
that sucks.
Symptoms would have been similar. So I think that was what I read I think I read that from the Constitutional Society notes that
I was wondering because it said whalebone. Was it just because whalebones are long and thin, or were they hollow in the center so it actually allowed something to pass through the middle of it?
I don't think whalebones are hollow in the center.
Okay.
I think they're just long and thin. Whalebone was something that everybody used for everything back then. So you'll hear about a lot of stays in collars and corsets and stuff, whalebone corsets, and they're using because of the whole variety of different sizes that you can get from a whale, things they carve them, they use them for writing implements and
I think that's
sewing needles and
Norway's
things.
Third biggest industry.
Yeah. So my guess is it was some kind of a large sewing needle.
Yeah. Oh God, that sounds even worse.
Yeah, I would think if it was going to be something hollow, it would have been a porcupine quill or.
Oh. Yeah, I guess that would work.
Those are hollow.
I don't know that I like speculating on this anymore.
Yeah, I don't even have one, and it hurts. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I had that weird squeamish feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Okay.
That feeling nobody likes. So anyway, tragic way to go.
Give me your thoughts then on Mr. Morris then as we wrap this up then. I mean, that's quite the ride we took us on. Tell us how your thoughts of him changed over the course of this research then.
So you're check out this founding father who had so many affairs that he broke his leg jumping out a window, running away from his affair partner's husband. And I was just like, oh, it's another Ben Franklin. Really? Do we need this? How many are we going to have? Right. And I know, the bitter feminist part of me is just again.
Another womanizer.
All right, I'll look at it. We'll look at another womanizer and make fun of this guy. We'll have a little fun. And the more I found out about him and the more I read specifically what he had to say, the more impressed I was with him. Speaking as a person who identifies politically as a libertarian, he really like exemplifies the things that I think are the most important for an individual living in like a republic where you have responsibilities, like understanding the difference between rights that everybody has versus like property that everybody has. The thoughts about equity between the sexes, and you know, that there's a sort of like, I don't want to call it the non-aggression principle, but it kind of falls into that category where it's like his attitude towards these women was, I like her and she likes me and nobody's really getting hurt here.
Yeah.
And this idea that
pursuit of happiness,
you have the right to pursue happiness, right? And that if you go back, like you look back into like, and we're obviously very, very founded on Christian documents. If you go back into the Old Testament, God tells the very first humans, go and be joyful, be happy to be alive. Like, that's what I want from you. The things I want from you is to be joyful. And he obviously was doing that. He was looking out to not harm anyone in his habits. It didn't sound like he ever beat a woman. Didn't seem like he was a drunkard.
like
he certainly didn't enslave anyone or
yeah.
steal any money. I don't think he was a rapist. I don't know if you can even say that on a podcast. You're gonna have to bleep me out. I'm not using fruit analogies for that word. I'm just not. I'm sorry.
Grapist.
Yeah. I hate that. So as I started reading this, the more I was like, wow, this guy's like, maybe like I find his behavior a little gauche, like for my personal social sensibilities. It's not behavior I would engage in. But I don't think anybody doesn't have the right to. And if nobody gets hurt and everybody seems to be happy, and the women said wonderful things about him after the fact. They write in their journals how generous and kind he was, that he, brought me these books to read and, listened to what I had to say and took into account my concerns about politics and the economy. And like, it's precisely the opposite of the problem I had with the men in our Revolutionary Women podcast. And it's like, I can hardly be mad at this guy. I can hardly be mad at him. So,
especially
my
if you view it through
really
the historical lens too, right?
I mean, he was a radical. He was kind of, I don't believe there's such a thing as a male feminist, because I think in order to operate from like what we would call like a feminist political lens, you have to have the lived experience of what it means to be a woman. And I don't know what that is. It's different than your lived experience as a man. And I don't know what that is either. It's just, I know that it's different. And I know it's different because our roles in society historically have always been different. So there's a big difference. But I could say he's sympathetic to the cause. He's a feminist. Seems like an early feminist ally. I think had he had a voice in and around Seneca Falls, I think that he would have been heard and appreciated.
That would have been amazing.
I think that my sisters at Seneca Falls would have been like, "You're all right, fella."
Do you think he'd have been more well respected than Frederick Douglass?
I mean, Frederick Douglass was respected because he was a firebrand.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you want a revolutionary marching through the streets with a pitchfork or a Molotov cocktail, right? Sometimes you want someone more diplomatic. I don't know. I don't know how the reception would. It would have been a different kind.
Gouverneur probably was invited, whereas Frederick probably showed up.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. I think it would have been like that. Yeah. So yeah, my opinion really shifted of him. I thought this is someone who I can respect. And like you said, I appreciated that he didn't seem to be afraid to say what he felt was the right thing to say. There's a lot of couching in this period, especially around the slavery topic, less so around women. Slavery is a hot button topic long before women's rights becomes a hot button topic. Like, they get to us last, which is fine. Whatever. Don't have any choice in that matter. But like the slavery thing, a lot of guys are couching their opinions. They're obfuscating with language to avoid saying the thing that they know is going to like lose them support or lose them money or get them in trouble because they know it's wrong, but they also have slaves. George Washington, I'm looking at you.
Oh yeah.
So like,
anybody not named Georgia, John Adams.
Yeah.
Really.
So I mean, I really respected that, and
his speech.
I like an iconoclast. I like someone who's not and here's the trick. I like an iconoclast, and I think this is in my own life like how I aspire to be. So maybe I came to see him as sort of like, oh, this is kind of a platonic ideal for me. I'd aspire to be an iconoclast, but not an asshole.
Yeah.
You
There you
know,
go.
I want to cut my own path.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
want to bother you with it.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
I really love that. So, yeah, maybe a new favorite founding father.
I think he's
Maybe,
up there
I
for
don't
me.
know. I mean, eventually there's gonna be like a list, and we're gonna have to like fight it out.
We're gonna have to rank all
And
the
people are gonna have to
non-presidents.
defend
Yeah.
their opinions,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be really difficult.
Maybe when we bring Eric back, we'll just do that free-for-all episode with just the founding fathers.
It's gonna be terrible.
All right, but I think that's probably going to do it for today. Though it does sound like we will be recording a new Lincoln episode here in early June, I think is what we're shooting for. So there'll probably be
Nice.
one or two more of these detours before we get back to our regular schedule. While you wait for Lincoln's second coming, please tell us your favorite story about the Goov in the comments, or you can just send us an email to buckstartsherepodcast@gmail.com if you're shy. Give us a like and a sub on your favorite platform, and we'll see you all soon. Produced by China Shop Productions.